Hello everyone, I'm Mihoko. This video is the Kokinshu Part 2. For the basic knowledge about the Kokinshu, please watch the video The Kokinshu Part 1. The Kokinshu is the first imperial anthology of Japanese poetry compiled in the early 10th century. It was the era of the aristocracy with the emperor at its head. The Emperor Daigo appointed the 4 persons to compile the poems. All the 4 compilers were not aristocrats, but low-ranking officials. They are chosen for their ability as poets and their aptitude for editorial works. Until about the time the Kokinshu was compiled, imported Chinese-style culture was highly valued, and the aristocrats eagerly studied Chinese poetry and literature. Japanese kana literature and arts were considered inferior in comparison. The purpose of compiling the Kokinshu was to revive Japanese poetry and create a new era of Japanese poetry on par with the Chinese poetry. Emperors and high-ranking nobles frequently held the poetry contest. Being good at Japanese poetry became a necessary element for the successful social life and a good marriage. In this video, you'll appreciate the 13 poems. You'll also learn about the social background of that time, or how to enhance the creativity of Japanese poetry and so on. I hope you'll enjoy it. In the Kokinshu, the total number of poems is about 1100, and the collection is divided into 20 volumes. The first 6 volumes contain poems about the 4 seasons, and they account for almost 1/3 of the total poems. At that time, people considered spring to last from New Year's Day on January 1st to the end of March, and occasional poems were arranged according to the flow of time until the end of December. The first is a poem about early spring by Tomonori. Along with his cousin Tsurayuki, Tomonori was one of 4 poets who compiled the Kokinshu. He passed away before the Kokinshu was completed. When Tomonori sent a plum branch to a woman, he accompanied it with a poem. 君ならで誰にか見せん梅の花、色も顔も知る人ぞ知る。If not you, who else would I show these plum blossoms? Only you can savor their color and fragrance. If not you, who else would I show these plum blossoms? Only you can savor their color and fragrance. The second is a poem about late fall by the priest Sosei. The priest Sosei was originally born into a high noble family. When the emperor, whom his father had served, passed away, the father became the priest Henjo and told his son, "A son of a priest should become a priest." Then the son himself became the priest Sosei. When he went to the mountains with his father to pick matsutake mushrooms, he noticed that the maple leaves there were still beautiful. In the capital where they lived, the autumn leaves had already ended. He composed a poem. もみじ葉は袖にこき入れてもていでな。秋は限りと民人のため。Going down the mountains with raked maple leaves in my sleeves, for those in the capital, thinking autumn is over. Going down the mountains with raked maple leaves in my sleeves, for those in the capital, thinking autumn is over. In addition to composing poems while observing nature, it was also popular to compose poems by looking at paintings on byobu, folding screens, or artwork of miniatures of nature like a box garden. When the Kokinshu was compiled in the early 10th century, Japan was the age of the aristocracy, and the houses didn't yet have shoji or fusuma as they would have in later times. Byobu was a typical tool to partition a large room at that time. The basic form of byobu has 6 sides that can be folded. In the earlier days, byobu was painted with Chinese paintings and Chinese poetry, but gradually Japanese paintings and poetry began to be drawn. The pictures painted on byobu are byobu paintings, and the poems painted with them or composed on the subject of the paintings are called byobu poems. The next is a byobu poem by Kino Shizuko. Kino Shizuko was a lady in waiting to the Emperor Montoku and one of his wives. The aristocrats had several wives in addition to their official wives. Shizuko gave birth to the emperor's first prince, and the emperor wanted to make this prince, called Prince Koretaka, his successor. But Shizuko's origins were not of high status, so Prince Koretaka could not become the emperor. When Emperor Montoku was so impressed by a byobu painting of a waterfall, he told the court ladies around him to compose poems on the subject of the waterfall. Shizuko composed a poem. In the poem, she expresses her deep love for His Majesty, which she endures without saying it out loud. 思いせく心の内の滝なれや、落ちとは見れど、音の聞こえぬ。I wonder if this is a waterfall deep in my heart, overflowing with love for you, but it is being dammed up without a sound. I wonder if this is a waterfall deep in my heart, overflowing with love for you, but it is being dammed up without a sound. The next is also a byobu poem by Oshikochi no Mitsune. Mitsune was one of the 4 selectors of the Kokinshu and was a representative poet along with Tsurayuki. In the scene depicted on byobu at the imperial palace, a man preparing to cross a river is standing on the reins of his horse under a tree with falling autumn leaves. The emperor told Mitsune to compose a poem about this painting. In this way, people are often required to improvise and compose poems. 立ち止まり、見てを渡らんもみじ場は、雨と降るとも、水は勝らじ。Before crossing the river, I shall stop and see the maple leaves. No matter how many they fall, the water level will not rise, like the rainfall. Before crossing the river, I shall stop and see the maple leaves. No matter how many they fall, the water level will not rise, like the rainfall. The next poem is by Sugawara no Michizane. Michizane was an aristocrat and scholar skilled in Chinese and Japanese poetry. Highly trusted by the emperor of the time, Michizane was promoted to the top minister in the court. However, when the emperor abdicated and a new emperor ascended to the throne as Emperor Daigo, powerful aristocrats told Emperor Daigo a false story about Michizane. They are jealous of Michizane's rapid promotion to the top minister. Emperor Daigo believed their lies and deported Michizane to Dazaifu in Kyushu Island. Emperor Daigo was the emperor who appointed 4 poets to compile the Kokinshu. Michizane was placed in a very poor environment there and died 2 years later. When Michizane was still active in the court, there was a poetry contest, and the participants were divided into 2 teams to create respectively a box garden of white chrysanthemums standing on the beach. Then they competed with each other for the beauty of chrysanthemums and poems. Michizane composed a poem. 秋風の吹き上げに立てる白菊は、花からぬか、波のよするか。Autumn wind blowing up, white chrysanthemums standing on the beach. Are they really flowers, or white ocean waves crashing? Autumn wind blowing up, white chrysanthemums standing on the beach. Are they really flowers, or white ocean waves crashing? After Michizane's death, the capital of Kyoto was hit by natural disasters such as lightning, fires, and epidemics, and the powerful nobles who had set up traps for Michizane also died one after another. It was believed that these events were caused by the grudge spirit of Michizane, and the Kitano Tenmangu shrine was built to appease his soul. In the Kokinshu, love poems are included in 5 volumes and, like the poems of the 4 seasons, account for about 1/3 of the total poems. The love poems are arranged along with the process from their beginnings to their end. Those days, men and women were not free to meet or spend time together. A man could become interested in or fall in love with a woman just by glancing at her from a distance or hearing rumors about her. Since the first step in a romantic relationship is for the man to confess his feelings, he sends the woman a poem to express his own feelings. The Japanese poetry was actually a short love letter expressing a deeper meaning. Kino Tsurayuki plays a central role among the 4 poets in compiling the Kokinshu. In the Kokinshu, Tsurayuki has the most poems with 102. When he went to a field to pick flowers, one woman there captured his heart. He composed a poem and sent it to her. 山桜、霞の間よりほのかにも、見てし人こそ恋しかりけれ。Just like I have seen mountain cherry blossoms faintly through the haze, I'm in love with you, whom I saw only faintly. Just like I have seen mountain cherry blossoms faintly through the haze, I'm in love with you, whom I saw only faintly. The next is a poem by Ono no Komachi, a famous female poet. Nothing is known about her background, but she was known as an exceptionally beautiful woman and has been depicted in many paintings. She left many love poems, and the next is one of them. 思いつつ濡れ場や人の見えつらん夢と知りせば覚めざらましを I saw him in my dream. Was it because I fell asleep thinking of him? Had I only known it was a dream, I would have tried not to wake up. I saw him in my dream. Was it because I fell asleep thinking of him? Had I only known it was a dream, I would have tried not to wake up. The next 2 poems were exchanged between a former couple. The unique feature of the marriage system at that time was that the husband and wife didn't live together, and the husband commuted his wife's house. Many men had several wives in addition to their official wives. If a man stopped going to his wife, it meant divorce. Fujiwara no Yoruka was a high-ranking court lady. She was married to Minamoto no Yoshiari, a minister of the court, but her husband stopped visiting. Yoruka collected all the letters she had received from him and sent them back to him. She added her poem to his letters. 頼めこし、ことの葉今は返してん。我が身振るれば、置きどころなし。Your words I have counted wrong. I'll return all to you. I'm old and the purse for you. I don't know where to put myself and your letters. Your words I have counted wrong. I'll return all to you. I'm old and the purse for you. I don't know where to put myself and your letters. In response, Minamoto no Yoshiari sent back his poem. 今はとて、返すことの葉拾いをきて、おのがものから形見とやみん。Like reaching for fallen leaves, I'm holding the letters you returned with your farewell words. Those the letters are all I wrote. Now they are remembrance of you. Like reaching for fallen leaves, I'm holding the letters you returned with your farewell words. Those the letters are all I wrote. Now they are remembrance of you. Ariwara no Narihira came from a very high-ranking aristocratic family and is legendary for being a beautiful man. He is said to be one of the models for Hikaru Genji, the hero of the tale of Genji. Narihira served Prince Koretaka, born to Emperor Montoku and Kino Shizuko, and they were also close friends. Prince Koretaka was considered as his father's successor, but because of his mother's low family background, he could not become emperor. Disappointed, the prince became a monk in his 20s and moved to a snowy district outside the capital. On New Year's Day, Narihira visited Prince Koretaka. Before the prince became a monk, his mansion was always crowded with people. However, his new residence had no visitors, and he looked very lonely. When Narihira returned home, he composed a poem in tears. 忘れては夢かとぞ思う思いきや、雪踏み分けて君を見んとは。Without knowing, reality slips my mind, wondering if I had been dreaming. I never even imagined that I would have to step through the deep snow just to meet you. Without knowing, reality slips my mind, wondering if I had been dreaming. I never even imagined that I would have to step through the deep snow just to meet you. Kiyohara no Fukayabu was a low-ranking nobleman and the great-grandfather of Sei Shonagon, who wrote the Pillow Book about 70 years later. One day, Fukayabu saw someone who had a high position in society suddenly lose it, and heartbroken, Fukayabu composed a poem about his own self, who knew neither the joy of being blessed with a better position nor the sadness of suddenly losing it. 光なき谷には春もよそなれば、咲きてと朽ちる物思いもなし。Here in the deep valley, where no bright light ever reaches, no need to anticipate spring, neither to get sentimental about flowers falling off. Here in the deep valley, where no bright light ever reaches, no need to anticipate spring, neither to get sentimental about flowers falling off. The next is by the priest Kenge. He lived in the 9th century, but nothing else is known about him. When the women laughed at his appearance, he responded with a poem. 形こそ み山隠れの口きなれ、心は花に、なさばなりな。I look chubby on outside, like a rotting tree in a mountain. But if I wanted to be, I can make my insides like a beautiful flower. I look chubby on outside, like a rotting tree in a mountain. But if I wanted to be, I can make my insides like a beautiful flower. The final is a poem that people sang at court ceremonies to the accompaniment of musical instruments. The poet is unknown. 新しき年の初めに隠しこそ、千歳を兼ねて楽しきを詰め。Let's start a new year for a millennium of prosperity. Let's share with each other fun we all have every single day of life. Let's start a new year for a millennium of prosperity. Let's share with each other fun we all have every single day of life. This is the end of the Kokinshu Part 2. Thank you for watching.